Do you love silly stories for kids? Why not consider joining our family? You can even get a very special message from one of your favourite Silly Stories for Kids characters. Head over to the website to find out more. It's your support that helps us to continue to make exciting stories and more crazy content.
Did somebody say crazy?
Oh, Pimpin, no. Pimpin! One day, a little girl named Grace was playing in her room. She was playing with some of her toys, and as she was playing, all of a sudden she heard a voice. Grace! Grace! She looked around. Where did that come from? She stood up and opened the door of her bedroom to look outside, but no one was there. She thought. She went back in and started playing with her toys once again. Grace! Grace! Said the voice. She looked around. Who's saying that? She said. Down here, said a voice. Grace looked around her room, but she couldn't see anything. Down here, said the voice. She looked down closely at the floor, and there, standing in amongst her toys, was a tiny little girl. Who are you? Said Grace. My name's Gloria, said Gloria. What are you doing with my toys? Well, I've actually been living in your room for a very long time, but I'm so small that you've never seen me before. Whoa, said Grace. That's amazing. It's lovely to meet you, Gloria. It's lovely to meet you properly too, said Gloria. Now, I think we might need some help, said Gloria. Help from who? Grace turned around and there behind her was a flying fairy. Who are you? Said Grace. My name's Peach, said Peach. Now, Gloria, I think you might need some help shrinking Grace down. Is that correct? Yes, said Gloria. Can you help? Of course, said Peach. Hold still, she said to Grace. Okay, said Grace. And Peach waved her magic wand over the top of Grace. And as she did, she got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until she was the same size as Gloria. Whoa! Hi, she said. Hi, said Gloria. Welcome to being small. This is strange, said Grace. She looked around. All of a sudden, her toys were so much taller than she was, and everything was so much bigger. Do you want to come on an adventure, said Gloria. I do, said Grace. Follow me. Gloria and Grace started walking together until they stopped at the edge of the carpet. Gloria held her hand up to her mouth and made a whistling noise. As she whistled, out of the carpet crawled two little beetles. Hello, Boris. Hello, Bernard, said Gloria, and the two beetles smiled at her. Whoa, said Grace. They seem so big. I know, said Gloria, but come with me. So Grace climbed on the back of one of the beetles and Gloria climbed on the other, and the beetles started running through the carpet. It was like running through a field of fluffy plants as they brushed past all the carpet and ran through the middle. This is fun, said Grace. They were charging through the middle until they got to the edge of the room. When they got there, there was a tiny little door. Oh, they opened the door and inside, there was an amazing house. Gloria, is this your house? Said Grace. It is, said Gloria. Come in. So Grace went inside and Gloria started to show her around the house. Now this is my dining room, this is my kitchen, and this is my bedroom. She showed her all the things, and there were all kinds of different pieces of furniture made out of different objects. The house was beautiful and had so many sparkly, amazing things. Now, said Gloria, would you like to have something yummy to eat? Oh, yes, please, said Grace. So Grace sat down at Gloria's table. The table looked like it was made out of an amazing piece of timber. She could see all the intricate pieces of work around the edges. Where did you get this from? Said Grace. Well, said Gloria, believe it or not, that was actually a tiny little wood chip from outside. Really? Said Grace. Really? I needed a lot of help to get it in here because it was so heavy for me. Oh, that's amazing, said Grace. As she was sitting at the table, Gloria brought out a tiny little plate, and on it was a very, very big ball of something. "What is that?" said Grace. "Have a taste and see." So, Grace picked up the giant ball of fluffy something. It seemed very big, but she knew it must be actually really small. She took a bite out of it. "Yum! This tastes like cake." "It is cake," said Gloria. "It's actually the cake from the other week. I borrowed a few crumbs off the bench when no one was looking." "Are you saying that this giant piece is actually just a crumb?" "It is," said Gloria. "Amazing," said Grace as she was eating and eating. "Would you like something to drink?" Sure." Peach went to the kitchen and came back with a tiny little cup filled with something sparkly. Not just sparkly like a normal bubble drink. This was actually glittery inside. "What is this?" said Grace. "Well," said Gloria, "this is actually something I make myself. I call it sparkle juice." "Sparkle juice," said Grace. She had a tiny little sip. "Oh, it's the most delicious thing I've ever tasted." She could feel the sparkles moving around inside of her, and it was tingling all the way from the top of her head to the tips of her toes. "It's amazing," said Grace. She had another sip. "Oh, I love this so much." "All right," said Gloria. "I'm so glad that you've come over, but we better get you back over where you were playing before anyone notices that you're gone." Okay." So Grace popped down the cup and took her plate back over to the sink. And then her and Gloria went back out the door. As they walked out, the beetles were still sitting there waiting for them. "Thanks, boys," said Gloria as she climbed back on. "Fantastic," said Grace as she climbed back on hers, and they started walking back through the carpet to get back over to where Grace had been playing. But as they were walking, they heard a noise. The door to Grace's bedroom opened and in came her mum. "Grace! Grace!" she said. But she couldn't see Grace anywhere. "Oh well, I guess this is a good time to vacuum her room." She pulled the vacuum in and turned it on. "Uh-oh," said Gloria. "I think we're in trouble," said Grace. The vacuum started pouring across the carpet, and Grace and Gloria were trying to get away. The suction was strong, and it was pulling them closer and closer and closer. The beetles were struggling as hard as they could to stay away from the vacuum, but the suction was just too strong. They were getting sucked in. "Mom! Mom!" yelled Grace. But her mum couldn't hear. She had her headphones in, and she was dancing as she vacuumed. "What are we going to do?" yelled Grace. "I'm not sure," said Gloria. "Have you ever seen the inside of a vacuum?" "What?" said Grace. "Here we go!" Grace and Gloria got sucked into the vacuum. It was very noisy inside the vacuum, until eventually it turned off. Grace and Gloria were sitting inside. "It's very dark in here," said Grace. "I know," said Gloria. "And very dusty as well." "How are we going to get out?" said Grace. I'm not sure." They looked. "The beetles! They're still in here as well." They went over and found Boris and Bernard. "All right, boys, we're going to have to work together to get out of here." The beetles smiled and nodded their heads. "Okay, let's work out which way is out." So Gloria, Grace, and the beetles started looking around the inside of the vacuum. "I think I see some kind of flap up there," said Grace. "Okay," said Gloria, "let's get up there." So they held on to the beetles, who climbed up the walls. Grace was holding on as tight as she could because she was actually upside down. When they got to the flap, Grace climbed over and grabbed a hold. As she held on, it pulled open. "I see the inside of the hose," said Grace. "Okay," said Gloria, "in we go." So the beetles climbed through the hole and started climbing down the hose. As they were climbing, they could start to see some light at the end. "Hooray! We're almost there," said Grace. "Fantastic," said Gloria. Then they heard the noise. "Whoosh! No! The vacuum's turning back on," said Grace. "Hold on," yelled Gloria. The beetles clung onto the sides of the hose as the air started rushing past. "Oh dear," said Grace. "I don't know how much longer I can hold on here." But fortunately, the vacuum stopped. "Quick, Go as fast as you can, yelled Gloria. So the beetles quickly ran down the hose as fast as they could and dove out the end. As they popped out the other side, they tried to work out where they were. I think we need to go that way, said Grace. Okay, said Gloria. They raced across the floor until they got back to where the toys were. Phew, said Grace. Thank goodness, said Gloria. Well, we better get you back to full size before you get sucked up again. Peach! Peach! Yelled Gloria. Just then, Peach appeared behind them. Hello, girls. Peach, quick, can you turn Grace back to her normal size? Of course I can, said Peach. So she waved her wand over the top of Grace, and as she did, she got bigger and bigger and bigger. While this was happening, her mum was still dancing with her headphones on, holding the vacuum and singing into it like a microphone. As she was singing, she turned around and saw Grace doing the last little bit of growing. Ah! Said her mum. Grace, where did you come from? Well, said Grace, I don't think you'd believe me, even if I told you. And please stop vacuuming. And that is the end of the story. Today's episode is brought to you by Wacky Vacuums. Do you need a vacuum that you can sing along to? Make sure that you grab yourself a Wacky Vacuum. We hope that you've been enjoying the silly stories for kids. Make sure to leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. This has been us, the Wacky Vacky Company. And me, Sam. We'll see you soon.